Have you ever had thoughts that don't seem to be yours? The ones that come out of nowhere, like a whisper in your mind, questioning your choices, your fears, your own identity? You may have wondered, why am I thinking about this? Is that really me? The truth is that your mind is constantly in motion, bringing up ideas, memories, and feelings that often seem disconnected from who you believe yourself to be. But what if I told you that these unsettling thoughts are not, in fact, you? And that there is a profound explanation for this? Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers in psychology, believed that our mind is made up of layers much deeper than we imagine, and that what we think is our identity may be influenced by invisible forces, shaped by our experiences, by the collective unconscious, and even by aspects that were never really ours. What does this mean in practice? How do you distinguish the thoughts that are part of who you are from those that just cross your mind as visitors? If you want to understand how your mind works and discover the truth about your deepest thoughts, subscribe to the channel right now. That way, you don't miss out on any content that can transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. Because now, let's dive even deeper into this intriguing question. Imagine that your mind is like a vast ocean. On the surface, there are constant waves. These are your conscious thoughts, the ones you perceive on a daily basis. But beneath that surface lies something much deeper and more mysterious, the unconscious. And that's where the real motives behind many of the thoughts that pop into your head are hidden. Carl Jung believed that our consciousness is only a small part of our psyche. He said that there is a vast territory within us, full of symbols, archetypes, and memories that directly influence what we think and feel. Often, these elements come to the fore unexpectedly, making us question whether we really have control over our own mind. Have you ever had a disturbing thought and then felt guilt or fear for having thought it? You may have wondered, why did this cross my mind? Does that say anything about who I am? But here's something essential to understand. You not your thoughts. Our mind is constantly processing information, past experiences, and external influences. Often, thoughts emerge as echoes of something we experience, as reflections of emotions we try to repress, or even as fragments of the collective unconscious, a fascinating idea proposed by Jung. According to him, we share a vast reservoir of images and ideas inherited from humanity, which means that sometimes certain thoughts may not come directly from you, but from something much bigger. But if those thoughts don't define who you are, then what really does? How to separate what belongs to your essence from what simply passes through your mind? The answer to this requires an even deeper dive. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. If you are not your thoughts, then who are you really? The answer to this question may seem complex, but the key lies in your consciousness and the way you observe your own mind. Jung believed that within each of us there is an observing self, a silent and deep part that is always attentive, without judgment, just noticing everything that happens. This is your true identity, the part of you that doesn't get carried away by fleeting thoughts, but sees them as clouds in the sky, rising and passing away without you having to cling to them. The problem is that, most of the time, we identify with everything we think. If a negative thought appears, we believe it says something about us. If a painful memory arises, we feel as if we are reliving that moment. But in reality, you are the one who perceives these thoughts, not the one who is defined by them. The mind can be a chaotic environment, full of noise, doubts, and questions. But the truth is, at the center of it all, there is something unchanging and essential in you. The challenge is to access this part and learn to differentiate your true voice from what only crosses your consciousness momentarily. But how to do this in practice? How do you learn to observe your thoughts without being overwhelmed by them? The answer to this lies in a simple but incredibly powerful technique that can transform the way you relate to your own mind. There is immense power in simply observing your thoughts without identifying with them. And the best way to develop this skill is through mindfulness, or as many know, the practice of mindfulness. The central idea is simple but transformative. Instead of automatically reacting to every thought that arises, you learn to notice its presence, recognize that it is there, and let it go without attachment. Imagine your mind as a river and your thoughts as leaves floating on water. Some leaves are light, some heavy, some beautiful, and some disturbing. But none of them is the river itself, and that river is you. In practice, this means that when a negative or unsettling thought arises, you don't have to accept it as absolute truth. Instead of saying, "I'm an anxious person," you might notice that, "I'm having a thought about anxiety." This small shift in perspective may be what separates mental confusion from total clarity. But how to make this a habit? The answer lies in practices that help strengthen your awareness of the present moment. Meditation, breathing exercises, and even short breaks throughout the day to simply observe your mind are all effective ways to develop this skill. Over time, you will find that thoughts come and go, but your essence remains intact. And that's exactly what brings us to the next question. If we are not our thoughts, but those who observe them, then how can we use this perception to transform our lives? The answer to this can completely change the way you deal with your challenges, emotions, and even your own identity. Understanding that you are the observer of your thoughts changes everything. Suddenly, you are no longer hostage to the inner voices that once seemed to define you. But this awareness, by itself, is not enough. The real power lies in learning to use this insight to transform your life. Your thoughts shape your reality, but only if you give them that power. When you identify with negative ideas, such as, "I'm not good enough," or "things never work out for me," your mind begins to look for evidence to confirm those beliefs. This is how mental patterns are formed. A recurring thought becomes a belief, which in turn influences your emotions and attitudes. But what if, instead of sticking to these stories, you chose to re-signify them? When you notice that a negative thought has arisen, you can question it. Is this really true? Or is it just a reflection of something I've been taught to believe? This simple act of questioning is enough to weaken the influence of limiting ideas. Another key step is to replace these thoughts with narratives that are more aligned with who you want to become. Instead of, "I can't," try thinking, "I'm still learning." Small changes like this reprogram your mind, helping it create new neural connections that favor a more positive and empowering mental state. But for this transformation to happen in a lasting way, there is an essential factor that differentiates those who really change their lives from those who remain stuck in the same patterns. And that factor could be the key to unlocking your true potential. What really differentiates those who transform their lives from those who remain stuck in the same cycles? The answer lies in one essential factor: conscious and consistent action. Becoming aware of your thoughts is the first step, but true change only happens when you choose to act differently. The mind is like a muscle. The more you train a pattern, the stronger it becomes. If you've spent years believing in limiting ideas, don't expect them to disappear overnight. But the good news is that you have the power to reprogram your mind through repetition and daily practice. One of the most effective methods for this is active self-observation. Instead of just noticing your thoughts, you start tracking recurring patterns. What are the beliefs that appear the most? How do they influence your emotions and attitudes? Each time a negative thought arises, you can consciously interrupt it and replace it with a new perspective. Another crucial factor is action aligned with the new mindset. It is not enough to just think differently. It is necessary to act according to this new vision of oneself. If you want to stop feeling insecure, start taking small actions that reinforce your self-confidence. If you want to overcome your fear of failure, gradually expose yourself to challenges that test your limits. Small daily changes create a powerful cumulative effect. In addition, learning to detach from the need for control is essential. Not all thoughts need to be fought or changed. Some simply have to be watched and let go, like wind-laden leaves. The less resistance you create, the more room you have to cultivate thoughts that truly reflect who you are and who you want to become. And now we come to the most important point of this whole journey, understanding that the path to this transformation is not about achieving a perfect state of mind, but rather about learning to navigate your own mind with more awareness and lightness. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in the conclusion. Throughout this journey, we explore an essential truth that can transform the way you see yourself. You are not your thoughts, but the one who observes them. This shift in perspective is powerful because it takes control over your identity out of the hands of your unconscious mind and returns that power to you. Carl Jung said that what you don't make conscious ends up governing your life, and you start calling it destiny. This means that as long as you continue to identify with automatic mental patterns, you will remain stuck in old cycles of fear, insecurity, and limitation. But when you learn to observe your thoughts without getting attached to them, you discover that there is an inner space of freedom and choice. The key to this transformation is not in trying to control every thought that arises, but in learning not to let yourself be defined by them. When a negative thought appears, you don't have to react with fear or resistance. Instead, you can simply recognize it, let it go, and consciously choose what you want to believe and how you want to act. This does not mean that the path will always be easy. Some beliefs have been built over years and will not disappear overnight. But every moment of awareness you conquer is a step toward a more authentic life that is aligned with who you really are. Small daily changes create a cumulative effect capable of reprogramming your mind and transforming your reality. So, the final question is, what do you choose to feed inside you? You can continue to live on autopilot, reacting to every thought as if it were an absolute truth. Or you may decide to take control, develop the ability to observe your mind clearly, and build a new way of existing in the world. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we explore deep themes that can expand your awareness and help you live with more purpose and balance. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message and leave your comment below. What was the biggest insight you had today? Because true transformation begins now, within you.